I'd like to ask you a question about reincarnation. Now, as a Catholic monk, you, of course, you take a stand for resurrection. Not only the resurrection of Christ, but the promised resurrection of all those who follow Christ. So you take a stand for resurrection. At the same time, let's say, roughly speaking, half the world doesn't believe in resurrection, but believes in reincarnation. And so I'm wondering what reflection you have upon that, yes. What sense that makes to you, how that kind of fits into your planetary spirituality. Yes. What's your feeling about reincarnation?
Well, you have packed so many questions into this one question that I think we could spend an hour just unpacking those. And I'll just mention some that I heard in there. Okay. One is the question of resurrection. I will not address myself to that right now, okay. Because that...
That's fine. I have another question about resurrection.
Okay. Then, of course, the main question is that about reincarnation. Now, and then you said that about, roughly speaking, half the world's population believes in reincarnation, and not all that many people in resurrection. Rightly understood, just to correct that at the moment, I would say probably much more than half the population of the world believes in reincarnation. But I also believe that almost everybody in the world believes in resurrection, rightly understood. Not under that terminology, because that's a very limited, strictly. So we'll come back to that. Okay. So I understand your question now. How do I, as a Roman Catholic monk, deal with the question of reincarnation? Well, many people say the Church does not allow you to believe in reincarnation. The reason for that is that long ago, in the 3rd century, the first great theologian, and probably the greatest theologian ever in the history of the Church, Origen, wrote in several of his works in a way that showed that he accepted reincarnation. And some of his works were later on rejected by the Church, but not explicitly because of reincarnation. So, although it is true that those works of Origen in which he wrote about reincarnation, or simply took it for granted, were rejected, they were not explicitly rejected because of reincarnation. This was much more complex. So that one could rightly say that the Western tradition, and particularly the Christian tradition, just hasn't confronted the question of reincarnation sufficiently. And now in our days, because of our closer contact with other religions through the media, and because the world is much more in interaction these days, and now the theologians, the Catholic theologians, have to confront that issue. And probably the greatest Roman Catholic theologian of this century, Karl Rahner, only towards the end of his life confronted that issue, because he wasn't familiar with it before. And now when everybody was talking about it, he studied it, and then he wrote, shortly before his own death, a short piece on the teachings of the Church about death and everything that's connected with it. And when he came to what we call purgatory, that is a time of purgation, we might have to say more about that later, but anyway, when we came to purgatory, he wrote, and this is the place where the doctrine of reincarnation fits in, but we have not studied this issue, and there will have to be a lot more work to be done on it. And for my own personal use, I have studied that issue sufficiently to say that when somebody asks me, which often happens after a lecture, so it's a very popular topic, so somebody says, do you believe in reincarnation? Just cold off that. The simplest for me is to say, yes, I do, because I'm a Roman Catholic, and our name for it is purgatory, but we haven't developed it very much.
So I'm hearing two things. I'm hearing that from Karl Rahner's standpoint, it might be a bit premature to equate purgatory with reincarnation, and yet on the other hand, there is certainly a fertile possibility there with regard to that kind of parallel.
Right. And equating is, of course, not exactly what I would suggest either.
Right.
It is just the area of concern, because the area of concern behind purgatory is what happens to a person who is basically on the right track, but has not found fulfillment. You cannot say that this life really led to fulfillment. So this life is over. Fulfillment is not yet here. Will this person have a chance to find fulfillment? Purgatory says yes, as through a fire. We'll have to go as somebody who goes through a fire. This is taken from one of the letters of St. Paul. The idea is when your house burns down, your life is saved. You've gone through a fire, everything else is burnt, but your life is saved. And this is the image that's used.
Yes.
But I do have to say something else about reincarnation in itself. And that is that I have had the great privilege of studying this question with Samdong Tulku Rinpoche, who is the head of the Institute for Higher Tibetan Studies in Sarnath in India. And he invited me, and especially mostly for this question, we spent a long time together, and he taught me about it. And while he was teaching me the authentic Tibetan understanding of reincarnation, I could understand it all, and I could see very clearly that it was perfectly compatible with Christian teaching. It was just on another track. It was a whole different philosophy behind it and so forth. But there was no point of incompatibility. But it was so refined and so subtle that I was like standing intellectually on tiptoe. And the moment he stopped talking, I slumped down, and then I couldn't see over this wall anymore. See? So I cannot give you his teaching, but I can say that to the best of my knowledge, it is perfectly compatible. What it is almost incompatible with is what we find about incarnation here in our bookstores. The Tibetan teaching of reincarnation doesn't fit here. And I can even tell you why.
Yes, I was about to say why.
Because the main concern of the people who buy these books about reincarnation on the little paperback book stands, and therefore the main concern of those who write this kind of books is how can I perpetuate myself? After I die, how can I live on somehow? And my little ego, in other words. And the whole idea of Buddhism is that this little ego is an illusion.